You're about to watch what we call an extended clip of the Young Turks, and the reality is it's somewhere in the middle. It's a little longer than our YouTube clips, but it's actually shorter than the whole 2-hour show, which you can get if you're a member. You can get it ad-free, and make sure you catch every news story we do that day. You're gonna love it as a full show. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Thanks for watching. All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Big show ahead for you guys. In a little bit, I'm going to tell you all about progressive victories, and we did have plenty of them last night, and I want to fill you in. And then, unfortunately, we've got a lot of police brutality. But look, this is not a new phenomenon. It's just we're now capturing it all on tape. So we thought the government was going to use video surveillance on us. Well, it turns out we flipped it, and we're using it on them. So the good news is we have captured it, and there are consequences. The bad news is it is really bad. We're going to get to that a little bit later in the program. So I've got a lot for you guys, and Anna's going to join me in a little bit. But we've got old school tonight. So if you're a member, you're going to love old school and our post game tonight. I'm going to break down in our post game how do I feel about the Allison Hartson loss. I'm going to talk a little bit about it in a second, including the victories, etc. But to get a little more personal, how did it feel and what did I learn from it in the postgame tonight? So if you want to become a member, you get all that commercial free. So that's tyt.com/join, okay? All right, just a fun little story for you guys. Apparently, Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, had a testy exchange with Donald Trump. And now remember, Donald Trump put tariffs on Canada along with our allies in Europe and in Mexico. And they were apparently discussing or debating that. And Trudeau said, how could you call us a national security concern? That was the excuse that Trump used to put the tariffs on. And Trump apparently said, didn't you guys burn down the White House? So Josh Fox was on the show last week. He was director of Gasland. And he was joking around about how Trump has turned the whole country into one giant South Park movie. And here we are, Trump continuing that theme by almost singing "Blame Canada." So, of course, if you don't know, you should. We all studied it at some point in school. The Canadians did not burn down the White House. That was the British in the War of 1812. Now, of course, you've got the usual conservatives jumping up and down, going, he was just joking. He was joking. He knew that. He knew that. He knew that. He was just joking. Sure, whatever gets you through the night. And then, of course, people pointing out that the British attacked us in retaliation for us attacking York, Ontario. That is true. Ontario at the time was not Canada. It was a British territory. Canada did not even exist. Canada did not exist until over 50 years later. Didn't you guys burn down the White House, you Canadians? Could you imagine Obama even joking around like that with a Canadian prime minister? Didn't you guys burn down the White House? Son? That's why I gave you the tariffs. How do you like that now, huh? My God, what the conservatives would have done. Anyway, we're used to it, unfortunately. We have a total doofus for a president. Did he study any history at all when he was in school? Did he study anything in school or otherwise? Did the history books include his name? If they didn't, he didn't study it. Were they in tweet form? If they weren't, he didn't study it. So unsurprising that he thought Canada had started a war with America. God help both of our countries. Okay, now we go to good news. Let's go over here. Okay. So Wolf-PAC is getting money out of politics. We've already passed a resolution in 5 different states calling for a convention to do that. Well, I got great news for you guys. For the first year ever in the state of Massachusetts, we have passed in 2 different committees, a joint committee on veterans and federal affairs. You have to pass these committees before you get to an actual vote in the Senate and the House. And we just passed in the Senate Rules Committee. So that's very important, and I want to tell you all about it and tell you why it's such good news, but most importantly, how I want you guys to get involved. So far, you've done an amazing job, and so the volunteers. So let me show you some of the good folks that were the heroes here. Senator Mark Montigny was the head of this committee, the Senate Rules Committee, and he was a total American hero in fighting for this, and I'm gonna give you one of his quotes in a second. But I want you to know something. You guys that volunteer for Wolf-PAC were a giant part of it. There was 300 letters sent to the chair. There was over 100 constituent calls. So that's all in the district, okay? These are real voters in these districts. Do you have any idea what kind of an army we have to have those amount of calls and letters in every single district? So unreal job by Wolf-PAC here, but Montigny is the hero for passing it through his committee, and he had this great quote. He even did a press release about it, about signing this particular legislation and passing it through his committee. He said, "The corrupting influence of the overwhelming amount of money in American politics has endangered our democracy and rendered the average voter almost insignificant in comparison to large corporations and those willing to sell out to the highest bidder." Those are strong words, and I love those words. All right, now let me show you some of the other great folks involved here in Massachusetts Senate. Senator Jamie Eldridge, big role here and pivotal in passing it. He's our sponsor for that We the People Act. And then you have Senator Mike Rush, Senator Ann Goby, and Senator John Lawn. And those are your heroes. And obviously the Senate votes coming up. I also want to tell you about one other group. We the People Massachusetts has been working with Wolf-PAC on this, and they've done some great heroic work as well. That's what progressive unity looks like when we're actually fighting on what I would argue, and I think majority of Americans would argue, is the most important issue: the corrupting influence of money in politics. Get the money out. Let's have actually free and fair elections. Let's get back to our democracy. So thank you to the We the People of Massachusetts and all these senators who voted the right way. Now the most important thing is you actually have to get it through the Senate. So at this point, the Senate President, Harriet L. Chandler, becomes the most important person, because not only do you have to have enough votes, but you've got to prioritize it and actually have a vote on it in the Senate. We understand, and we've got some great workers there, that we have enough votes for it to pass already. So I want you guys to get involved and to make that happen, okay? So it's important that we stay vigilant to make sure that these things happen. And by the way, if it passes the Senate, then Senator Chandler becomes a total hero in this movement and in getting money out of politics and ending the corruption in our system. And we're looking forward to that happening. So get involved if you're in Massachusetts. wolf-pac.com/MA. Okay, Wolf-PAC is a lovely new site now. You'll see it at wolf-pac.com. But if you're in Massachusetts, make sure that you go to your own state. If you're not in Massachusetts, that's okay. You can get involved and become one of these heroes in your own way in your own state. Go to wolf-pac.com/states to find out how you can get involved. And I want to thank our Wolf-PAC volunteers in that state: Matt Mazzola, the organizing director; Rick Canavan Wagner, the legislative director; and Bo Yi, the community director. So wonderful work so far. Let's keep going, guys. Let's make sure we pass the Senate and the House and make Massachusetts the 6th state to call for this and to finally end the corruption and get money out of politics and give us back our democracy. So isn't it wonderful when legislators do the right thing and they are responsive to their community and their constituents? It's both heartbreaking when they're not, and we let you know about that, and also wonderful when they are, and make sure that we celebrate that. All right. Always good to have a little bit of good news here. All right, now let's go to last night's elections and give you the good news from there. So last night there was 8 different primaries, including the state of California, huge states voting here, and lots of progressives in those races. And some of them were definitely losses. Obviously, I was backing Allison Hartson in the Senate race in California. She did not win. And then you had a lot of good Just Democrats who lost, like Rosa Calderon, Doug Applegate, and the list goes on. And yes, we had losses in a bunch of different states: Iowa, Montana, California, New Jersey, etc. But I want to make sure that you guys know about the victories as well, and not just for Just Democrats, but for all the different parts of the progressive movement. And I really want to applaud some of the other groups that did wonderful work in these races. And these were really important victories in races where there was a lot of attention paid to progressives.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of On the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, "You must unlearn what you have learned." And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Versus establishment Democrats. So first, let's go to the 45th district in California, where we had Katie Porter, who was backed by Senator Elizabeth Warren, against David Min. So I'm going to tell you all about that race. The incumbent there is Representative Mimi Walters, and they were vying to take her on in California. The top two, no matter which party advanced to the general election. So Mimi Walters, being the incumbent, advanced. The question was it going to be Katie Porter, the progressive, or David Min, more establishment Democrat, who advanced? So first, let me go to The Intercept here. David Dayen and Ryan Grimm writing yet another great article about this. They explained that Min, a former Senator Chuck Schumer staffer, Center for American Progress fellow, an assistant professor at Porter's school, UC Irvine, had the backing of the state's party and the New Democrats. That's a Wall Street-friendly bloc that supplied 27 of the 33 House Democratic votes in favor of the recent bank deregulation bill. So these guys who are pro-bankers and pro-donors backing David Min. So did he win? Well, as you can tell, obviously we're celebrating. He did not. Katie Porter, the progressive hero, won. So the Grimm and Dayen explained further. Min, meanwhile, was hesitant to embrace Medicare for all and ran a slashing race attacking Porter's credentials. Porter ran on battling big banks, expanding Social Security, reversing the Trump tax cuts, and establishing Medicare for all, and she won. Those are all very progressive positions and got her a solid victory, and she moves forward to the general election. And obviously here at the Young Turks, look, this is the home of progressives. We cover all these progressive issues for you. We cover the primaries every time live, tyt.com/live. Or get our app by entering TYT in the App Store, or become a member and you get all this coverage at tyt.com/join. So we did tell you about some of these races last night, or a lot of these races, and I want to tell you about more of them here that they highlighted. So they explain about how Katie Porter won, and The Intercept does a wonderful job of covering this as well. They explain she did it with the aid of Emily's List, but also from a couple of progressive groups that made a threshold race. Oh, I'm sorry, this is now moving on, I should be clear. This is moving on to, nope, not moving on. This is actually part of that race, sorry. Let me read it to you again. She did it with the aid of Emily's List, but also from a couple of progressive groups that made this a threshold race, Democracy for America and the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. They both targeted the seat as a signature skirmish in the battle for what it means to be a Democrat in this country, and they labeled it as such. So this is not Monday morning quarterback. They said, we'll get to find out who's better, progressives here or the establishment. And that's how Porter put it as well. So DFA, Democracy for America, made 43,000 calls into the district, and both sent staffers to knock on some of the 100,000 doors the campaign hit. And we talked to Kara Eastman, who won as a Just Democrat in Nebraska in an upset victory a couple of weeks ago. We talked to her last night. She said the same thing. Her volunteers knocked on 60,000 doors in her district. So you're beginning to see that the key to victory is getting out there and actually meeting the voters and knocking on doors, and it even beats a ton of spending that comes in on television advertising from the establishment. So here it was good to have some allies, and Adam Green talked about the win from PCCC and how it was a win for the Warren wing. But to me, more important than that, win for progressives and for grassroots organizing. Giant win. Now, let's go to another race that we heavily featured on the Young Turks. The New Democrats suffered another defeat in a race that pitted the two camps of the party against each other in San Diego's 50th district. Amar Kampa-Najjar, who ran as a progressive with the backing of the Justice Democrats, PCCC, and Democracy for America, beat Josh Buettner, endorsed by the New Democrats and backed by the Wall Street-friendly Representative Joe Crowley, the chair of the House Democratic Caucus. Crowley's got his own primary against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That's coming up in a couple of weeks in New York. But Crowley and the Wall Street guys, of course, backed Buettner, even though he was running in 5th place, but they poured a ton of money in. But Amar Kampa-Najjar had 700 volunteers. Same thing, grassroots energy winds up beating a huge money from the Wall Street corporate Democrats. So now let me go on to a third example. There's another race that we featured heavily. This was New Mexico's 1st district, and they explained at The Intercept that district had Deb Haaland, Antonio Cedillo Lopez, and the prosecutor Damon Martinez squaring off. Cedillo Lopez, a civil rights attorney, had the backing of some national progressive groups such as Justice Democrats and the Working Families Party, as well as Latino Victory, which spent heavily on her. Martinez, meanwhile, got a big boost in spending from the super PAC tied to No Labels. That is another corporate Democrat group. But Haaland, who's poised to become the first Native American member of Congress and had the support of the Congressional Black Caucus PAC and environmental group 350.org, beat both of them. So that's another great case of two different progressives in the race against a corporate Democrat. The corporate Democrat with more money defeated by an actual progressive, Deb Haaland. She is very likely to win that race in the general election. So she is very, very likely to be the first Native American woman in Congress. What I care about more, that's a great thing, but what I care about more is policy, and she is deeply, deeply progressive. So I like that Just Democrats and Working Families Party were working together, and Cedillo Lopez was a wonderful candidate who I interviewed on our show Rebel Headquarters. But another progressive winning is very good news. So the key there was to make sure that Martinez did not win, and he didn't. So the corporate Democrat loses again. Now, Intercept points out a more local race that we did not cover that I thought was also really interesting. And at the end, I'm going to tell you about ranked choice voting and what a difference it made for progressives in San Francisco. So first, one more example here. In northern New Mexico, the Working Families Party, top recruit for the night, Susan Herrera, pulled off a landslide upset in a state legislative race that the local press called the end of a political era. The Working Families Party spent more than $60,000 on the race, and she knocked off a 25-year incumbent, Representative Debbie Rodella, in an area that is solidly Democratic but thought to be socially conservative. So beating a 25-year incumbent ain't no small thing. Another lesson learned there is in local races, progressives can have the financial advantage because $60,000 in a local race like that is a lot of money. But if you pool your resources together, as Working Families Party did there, you wind up getting a landslide election victory. Wolf-PAC, fighting to get money out of politics, is a nonpartisan group, but they also spend in local races, and trust me that works, and it sends a message to a lot of the other politicians on an issue that everybody cares about. Now, speaking of voting, though, and free and fair elections, that brings us to the final story, which might be actually the most interesting of all. I mean, these progressive victories against in highly featured races against establishment Democrats is wonderful. But how you vote is a huge part of the process and part of the problem, unfortunately, in this country. Well, in San Francisco, for the mayor's race, they have ranked choice voting. So let's see how that turned out. The establishment was also dealt a blow in San Francisco, The Intercept explains, where business-friendly candidate London Breed came out on top in the first round of voting. Oh, well, that sounds like bad news, but hold. The city uses a ranked choice system in which voters rank candidates on their ballot instead of voting for just one. If no one gets a majority of votes in the first round, the next preference votes are counted until a candidate gets the most of the votes. The left had split its votes between Mark Leno and Jane Kim. I had interviewed Jane Kim, and she talked about how they were working together in this unique system. Now, that gave Breed a lead with 36% to Leno's 26% and Kim's 21.5% in the first tally. Without ranked choice voting, that would have been the end of it, and Breed would have been declared the victor, and then hence the establishment would have won that race. But that's not how ranked choice voting works. So, but with ranked choice votes, they explain, the bulk of Kim's support shifted to Leno, putting him on top. Now, Kim talked to us about that when I had her on the show and said Mark Leno and Jane Kim working together and actually cooperating in the middle of the race, not after the race, in the middle of the race, saying, hey, if you like him best, put him at 1, put me at 2. If you like me best, put me at 1, put him at 2. And guess what? That totally worked. So the progressive candidate, because of ranked choice voting, came out on top. Isn't it amazing when democracy works and functions as it should to give the voters what they actually want and to represent the will of the voters in a system that works? We can have that democracy. We got to work towards it, and sometimes we got to fight towards it. So I love that San Francisco has that system. I love that all these different progressive groups working on different campaigns pushed forward and got these amazing progressive victories.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
And by the way, they didn't talk about it in the Intercept, but I should also mention Audrey Denny won her race as a Just Democrat in the California's 1st District, meaning that she will go on to the runoff against a Republican incumbent. So progressive victories for all the groups involved. So look, our job is to cover all the news for you guys. So there were losses and there were victories. For these new groups, though, it is amazing what they're able to accomplish in a short period of time and the number of victories that they have put up on the board. All right, we're going to take a quick break now, and we will come back with lots of stories from the Trump administration. Unfortunately, a lot of police abuse and some horrible videos, but it's important that we see them because we are finally beginning to address that problem in America as well. So we'll come right back and talk to you about it. Thanks for listening to this podcast. You're only halfway through, so hold, stay right here. Just want to remind you, if you want to get all 5 segments of the Young Turks commercial free, these are just 2 of them. Every day we do it. So go to tytnetwork.com/join and you get the whole 5 segments, 2 hours, ad free. Do it now.
On that show. Hi.
Hey. So coming back, we're talking about old school. So Anna's got our app, so she's obsessed, and she's a member, so she's listening to all the old schools, and that put us in trouble. She was just listening to one where J.R. Jesus and I did one talking about how men should get more credit inside marriages. Okay, yeah. tyt.com/join, become a member. You'll love old school, and if you get the app, super convenient way to listen to it or watch it. But apps also for non-members. All of our, not all, but almost all of our videos are on there. You'll really love it. All right, what's next, JR?
Oh, the YouTube super chat, 20 pounds. So we'll have to get Danny here to give us the exchange rate. So 20 pounds from Patrick to here comes the British pound. This first point he makes. Jake, we met at the Oxford debate and then your Larry Sanders interview last year. You're right. There's plenty of hope as there's many tactics to boost name recognition. I'm building many of them, says Patrick.
So that's very nice. So thank you, Patrick. Appreciate it, brother. So I interviewed Bernie Sanders' brother when I was in the UK. He has such a cute little home, and he's such a lovely couple. They're just hanging out, minding their own business. He's in politics too, and he's a great progressive. But they're such a nice family. Anyways, who looks at those people and goes, "These people try to control our lives"? It's hilarious. Go back and watch that interview. Anyways, was that the debate that I won 2-1 at Oxford about getting money out of politics? Oh, I guess it was.
Did you actually win it? Like they scored it afterwards?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, at the Oxford Union, you do a real debate, 3 people on each side, that had the guy who won the Supreme Court case on Citizens United.
I remember, yeah.
And Floyd Abrams, who's a legendary First Amendment lawyer. Did I already mention I won 2-1?
You did mention that.
Was it the same way they scored debates at Politicon? I'm just curious. A couple of
no, but that's a good point. Can I just say for a second, if I was a right winger, I'd go around Floyd Abrams, who's a great guy and a wonderful lawyer and stuff. And I'd be like, "What happened now? Oh yeah,
Jake Huger gets
this rate. Oh, whatever." No, it was a good debate. We went back and forth, and it's easy for me to win because, of course, we should get money out of politics.
Jake Huger destroyed. I love YouTube videos. They're so funny.
TYT Live from We All Scream Because Trump says, I'd like to give a shout out to Alabama. We were just talking about this. Where a nice house costs $750K. Out here in Cali, I think I can remember seeing an empty lot of land for $800K.
You're absolutely right. There is an empty lot of land in a neighborhood that I live in. By the way, I do not live in a house. So anyway. It's $1.5 million.
No, I know.
$1.5 million for an empty plot of land. That's crazy.
I just keep dreaming about Dr. Lee. After the LA riots in '91, they're like, "Oh, LA's done. It's so dangerous. You don't want to be there." He's like, "Agree to disagree. I'm going to go buy half of Koreatown." Okay. Yeah. They're like, "But that's right next to African Americans." He's like, "Yeah, okay, let's see how that turns out." Okay?
Yeah.
And he bought that. He's now one of the richest guys in all of California because it turns out property in LA keeps going up because it's kind of nice out here. Can I just say real quick? Yeah. There was a Republican debating Bob Shrum, a guy who I've debated. He's more of an establishment guy. Look, I like these guys in person. I just don't agree with their politics. He's an establishment Democrat, ran a lot of those losing campaigns in the presidential races. Keep it real, that's what happened. Anyway, in this case, I'm on his side. The Republicans are telling him, he's like, you're from Los Angeles. What a terrible city that is.
They all end up moving here.
Have you ever been here?
They all end up moving here.
I know. If it's such a terrible city, why does an empty lot cost $1.5 million? And you can buy 3.5 mansions in Alabama for $1.5 million, you could buy Alabama. Okay. Anyway.
I just want to do member shout-outs before we miss out. Stephen Jones and Sheila Kelly, 2 members today.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. TYT.com/join. All right. What's next, Anna? Thank you, Jay.
Okay. A police beating in Mesa, Arizona is getting a lot of attention, and it has to do with a man named Robert Johnson who was not suspected of a crime. He was not reported to authorities. He just happened to be in the apartment complex with his friend who was involved in a potential domestic dispute. Now, I'm going to give you the details of that in just a second, but the video you're about to watch is graphic, difficult to even look at. But with that said, take a look at how multiple police officers responded to a man who did nothing wrong.
Okay, so they punch him in the face 14 times and you'll see him go unconscious. Jesus Christ, man. He's not the suspect. He's not alleged to have done anything wrong.
So a woman had called 911 alleging that her ex-boyfriend was trying to break into her apartment. That was a 20-year-old man named Eric Reyes. And so cops arrive, they see Eric Reyes and Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson is the friend. He's not involved in any of this at all. And at that point, they had told him to comply. His lawyer says Robert Johnson was sitting peacefully against a wall when the assault began. He was leaning against the wall. He did not resist. The misconduct of these officers would have gone unnoticed if it had not been captured by surveillance videos at the apartment complex where the assault occurred. So that surveillance was given to the police chief. Police chief looks at it and says, okay, this is problematic. 4 cops have been suspended with pay pending an investigation. Keep in mind that Robert Johnson is suffering from severe injuries. His lawyer says he's doing terribly. He did not deserve the beating he took from many officers. Mesa police have a culture of hurting and shooting and killing people. And this is just another incident that shows how badly this department needs to be cleaned up. Now, some of you might say, well, that's Johnson's attorney. Of course he's going to say those things. But we actually have evidence of the pattern of police brutality in this specific police department. There's a case involving an 84-year-old grandmother who was severely injured because of the cops using excessive force. There's another story involving Daniel Shaver. If you can recall, he was a man who was traveling from out of town. He was in Mesa, Arizona, and a police officer shot him and killed him in the hallway of a hotel. We have those videos and we're going to show it to you in just a second. But this is a serious problem within this department. And the brutality that you saw in that video is outrageous. And if nothing gets done after that, I mean, there's really no hope when it comes to stories like these.
So when I see a story like this, I try to figure out what happened. So why did the cops pummel him? And so they explained that they wanted him to move away from the railing. He did. They wanted it to stand by the wall behind him. He did. And then they told him to sit down. The description of the video and the story was that he was on his phone. And I thought maybe the cops panicked and thought he was recording them. And so they hate being recorded. And maybe that's why they did this, right? But looking at the video, you don't get that sense. It seems like he complied with 89% of the orders, but maybe he was a little slow in sitting down. Okay, so they're like, wait a minute, are you disrespecting a police officer? I gave you a warning and I was trained that if I give you an order and you don't follow it immediately, my job is to use incredible force against you. So I'm glad the police chief is saying that he's concerned about it and they're on administrative leave. But historically in Mesa and unfortunately in far too many places in America, they're not at all concerned about it. That's what they taught him to do. The only reason we're seeing it now is because of the video surveillance. So if we didn't have those cameras everywhere, guys, this has been happening to some people in the country for a long, long time. You just didn't see it because you're not among those people.
No, but here's what those people who make excuses for the cops need to understand. This is not just about race. This is not just about police using excessive force toward a specific community. First of all, if that were the case, everyone should be outraged, but I understand that we live in a country where some portion of Americans don't care if it only impacts black people. I get that. But this has also impacted white people in the community, including an 84-year-old grandmother who had recently suffered a stroke. So let's go to that story. So apparently a woman had called the cops because her son was posing a threat. She said that he was outside the home and she believed that he had a weapon. But she warned the 911 operator, look, my mother is old. She just suffered a stroke. She's already very stressed out. Please keep that in mind when the police arrive. And guess what the police did when they arrived? They decided to violently beat her and handcuff her. And by the way, they did not release the video until the family released photos of her injuries. So I want to show you the photos of her injuries before we go to the video. Let's go to graphic 52. This is an 84-year-old woman. What do you got? 84-year-old woman who had just suffered a stroke. There's more photos. Let's go to 53 and 54. So later, the cops agreed to release video of her arrest. And for some reason, they blurred it. But you can still get a sense of how they treated her. Take a look.
We don't know what's going on, and we need to get that cleared up. Movies, right? Keep coming back here. Take the line. I want you to go on this way for me. Thank you very much. Come back here. Come on over. This is the Mesa Police Department. Because you are not following my directions. Do not. Put your hands up. Go ahead. Okay. You're being detained because you are not following directions.
But we unfortunately cannot leave at this moment until we make sure that you're okay. If you don't want me to be on the loudspeaker and have the whole neighborhood hear me, please pick up the phone and dial 911 and they can pass us through.
Okay. All right.
But again, this is the Mesa Police Department. We are here to help you. We were told that there is a gun involved, and that's why we're taking the measures we're taking.
Here's a unifying theme. If you got power, you're never going to be treated that way. You don't have power, God help you, man, in this country. It's just because the election just happened, it's top of mind for me. Senator Dianne Feinstein's 84. That woman was 84. You think they're going to do that to a senator? No way. No way. But you got no power. You just had a stroke. The Mesa Police Department says in that video, as Anna pointed out while we were watching it, they say, we're here to help you. Does it look like they're here to help you?
And I do want to bring up the case of Daniel Shaver, who is dead because of the Mesa Police Department. He was traveling to Mesa from out of town. He worked for an exterminator company, and he had a pellet gun that he used to kill birds, I guess, as part of his job. And so he was in his hotel room, and apparently other hotel patrons saw him with the pellet gun inside his room. And so they called the cops. Cops show up, and what you're about to see is very graphic, difficult to watch. But here's how they handled it, and I want you to keep close attention to Shaver's behavior, where his hands are, and how he did not pose a threat at all.
Before we go to the video, one more piece of important context. What was reported into the cops was something that resembled a rifle, okay? Now, it turns out it was a pellet gun, but does it look like he's got a rifle on him? And does it look like they're training the cops in Mesa right?
Extremely graphic here.
Extremely graphic, yes. This is one of the toughest videos to watch. But this is what cops are doing. We got to show you so we can fix it and have them protect and serve. But for the moment being, this is what's happening.
Stop right there! Stop! Stop! Get on the ground, both of you! Lay down on the ground! Lay down on the ground!
Who else is in the room? Nobody. Since apparently we have a failure for you to comprehend simple instructions, I'm going to go over some of them again, okay? Can you both hear and understand me?
Yes.
All right. If you make a mistake, another mistake, there's a very severe possibility you're both going to get shot. Do you understand that?
Yes.
I do.
Yes.
All right.
What the?
This is, shut up. I'm not here to be tactful or diplomatic with you. You listen, you obey. For one thing, did I tell you to move, young man? Did I tell you to put both your hands on the top of your head and interlace your fingers? Take your feet and cross your left foot over your right foot. If you move, we're going to consider that a threat, and we are going to deal with it, and you may not survive it. Do you understand me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, young man, listen to my instructions and do not make a mistake. You are to keep your legs crossed. Do you understand me?
Yes, sir.
You are to put both of your hands palm down, straight out in front of you. Push yourself up to a kneeling position. I said keep your legs crossed.
I'm sorry.
I didn't say this a conversation. Hands your hair! Hands up in the air! You do that again, we're shooting you. Do you understand?
Do not shoot me.
Then listen to my instructions.
I'm trying to just do what you.
Don't talk, listen! Hands straight up in the air. Do not put your hands down for any reason. You think you're going to fall, you better fall on your face. Your hands go back in the small of your back or down. We are going to shoot you. Do you understand me?
Yes, sir.
Crawl towards me. Crawl towards me!
Yes, sir.
Don't talk!
Jesus Christ, man. You think we don't need police reform in this country? What is wrong with you? If you, again, whether it's race or not race, look at those two people were white. It's power versus the powerless. And one thing he said there stuck out to me. He said, you listen, you obey. For God's sake, conservatives, you should be on our side here. You're worried about big government power? I mean, does it get any more big government power than that? You listen, you obey to the government and play this insane, murderous Simon Says game. And then he was trying to do everything right and they mowed him down. You're telling me Mesa Police Department doesn't have problems? You're telling me that they didn't get trained to brutalize the citizens? No, there's no coincidence that large that one after another, they continue to brutalize the people they're supposed to serve. It needs absolute whole-scale reform. By the way, one of the good things Obama did was he was trying to do reform of police departments that were notorious like Mesa. Now, Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump have come in. They stopped all reform and said, no, keep going.
Grand jury decided not to charge the cop who shot Daniel Shaver. So
it's all relative. I mean, so of course in that case we're outraged. So in the case with the 6 cops that beat the guy up at the elevator, were they on unpaid leave? You know what that is? It's vacation. Go on vacation, come back till this blows over. It's all this. It's reinforcing what they've already taught them. Do what you like. If you get caught, we'll say you're in trouble for a couple weeks and then come back and no one's gonna talk about it. This is Mesa. The reason we ran on this is all the same police department, am I right?
Same police department, yes.
It keeps happening. Something's not changing here. They sanction it, even when they say they're not.
Yep. All right, let's take a quick break here. When we come back, well, Anna, you said it wouldn't be fun. You were right. Mission accomplished. But we do have a Betsy DeVos story for you guys. So we'll be back. Thanks for watching what I hope was a lovely edition of the Young Turks. Now, you know that is 2 of the 5 segments that we do because that's free. We want to have you support independent media and come watch the whole show that we do every day. That's 5 segments overall, no ads at all. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Come become a member. Thanks for watching either way. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.